Welcome everyone to today's LinkedIn Experts live Q&A call. And for those of you who've been on before, you'll know that each month we invite one LinkedIn expert to join me and field a whole load of questions from you, basically to try and help you get the most out of LinkedIn. So, what challenges are you facing at the moment? What are you unsure about how to do or what you should be doing? And we'll rattle through as many of those as we can, give you some actionable ideas that you can take away and use right away. This isn't a screen share call, so Judi and I will be on camera answering your questions. We can always, send you a message and point you in a direction of something after the call if needed. But we'll be talking through the kinds of things to do rather than doing on-screen demos. So with that said, delighted today that we have Judi Hayes joining us. Many of you will know Judi. She has a Forbes column and is a LinkedIn Sales Navigator certified expert. So really thrilled to have Judi on today. Judi, do you want to just start by telling people what it is you do and what types of businesses and people you help, and then we'll dive into the questions.
That sounds great. And Tony, I just have to say, meeting you and being on this show is the power of this platform, because you are in the UK, I'm in New York, and it's like, here we are. So it's so cool. So yeah, and LinkedIn, what I do is I really help people fall in love with LinkedIn. And I work with usually business owners, senior executives, managing partners of professional service firms. And I show them how to engage with content and how to create and take conversation opportunities offline. So whether it's meeting in person or on Zoom or whatever, and a lot of it is driven through content. So I'd say the content is really the focus, but I call LinkedIn the gateway drug because, if you're doing business to business marketing, this is typically the platform that you're going to find people.
And you're absolutely right. This is the perfect example of how, win-wins can emerge from LinkedIn, because we at Social Hire work with a very similar, type of client. We work with professional services firms, consultancies, recruitment businesses, business coaches, those kinds of businesses. But we work with companies that have decided they just don't have the time for this and they want to hand it off to someone else to do. Whereas you're working with the businesses that do want to figure out how to do this themselves. And yeah, it's a great win-win.
Yeah. So
I put out a post today with a sort of Terminator style cyborg saying, fake profiles, be warned. There's been lots of discussion over the last few weeks about, how many accounts LinkedIn is taking down and, is doing a good job of policing this. There'd be far more fake profiles if they weren't doing that. But do you have some thoughts on how people can, look out for those kinds of fake profiles? In some cases, they're just being used, to give businesses more accounts on LinkedIn and be able to contact more people, so it's not that malicious. In other instances, it is being done, for downright, fraudulent reasons. So, any thoughts from your side on what people should look out for there?
Yeah, I have like a three-part test, and I think first and foremost, when you're connecting with people, regardless of how many people are in your network, have a strategy, because who you connect with impacts what you see in your feed and also who else you can connect with, your first degree, second degree. So definitely have a strategy and say, okay, here's the type of person I want to connect, who's going to be in your group, who's going to be in your tribe. So the three-part test that I work with my clients and I use for myself is, the first one is the profile. And if somebody sends me an invite, and it's like, oh, so excited, they want to connect with me, and they have this invitation that sounds, like they wrote it for me. And so first thing I'll do is I'll look at their profile. So, I'll ask the audience here, how many times do you actually look at the profile of the person that wants to connect with you? So that's the first thing, look at it. And take a look at what is there. Is it kind of sketchy? Is it not really filled out? Is it kind of those avatar companies and schools that don't make sense? That's the first thing. Trust your gut on that. The second thing is look for dates that don't make sense. Look for incomplete information. Maybe English isn't their first language, and you can see how things are written. So that's the profile test. And also you can do what I do a lot, and I have to saying this to my male clients, don't connect with pretty faces, and now there's handsome dudes too. because use something like Google reverse image search or TinEye to check a profile to see, is it a real profile or is it an AI, realistic profile? And I think it was, forget who wrote, NPR or somebody wrote a whole big thing about, using AI to create these fake pictures. So that's one thing. The content test is another thing. Are they posting? So here's the thing. Do you want to connect with somebody that's not posting anything on the platform? Either they're going to sell to you or they're just dormant and they just want to, add to their connection collection. So that's another thing, is, are they posting? And if they are posting, what kinds of things are they saying? Is that aligned with the type of content and subject matter that appeals to you? And then, are they using some weird, like, dear sir, madam, or hello, my dear, or something like that? Don't go there. Go there. And then the other thing is the network test. That would be the third test. And is looking who else they're connected to. Mm-hmm. And see, is it under 100 connections? Are they connected to some people that are not, great connections? Do they have followers? Really, what is going on there? And are there any recommendations written? Do they have any people that are in common mutual connections to you? Now, I would say I have 35,000 some odd, 36,000, no, 35,000 followers. I don't know, 80 some odd, 8,000 some odd connections. If somebody doesn't have a second degree with me, or even a third degree, I'd be very suspicious. It's just, law of averages. So using those three tests, and here's why you don't want to connect with fake profiles. It's a waste of your time. It screws up your news feed. It puts you at risk of scams. And, the stuff that's on your profile is all identity theft, and so much of it around, where you went to school, what year you graduated, what, people you know. So I would say build your network strategically and be wary of who you connect with.
Great advice. And I would just add one point to that, which is when we're helping clients, strategically grow their networks with, the kinds of people in their industry that ultimately they want to win business with, it's really interesting to note that I would say under 5% of people actually look at someone's profile before choosing to accept a connection request. And that is where you're on dangerous ground, because if you're just going on the person's photo and their headline and perhaps any connection request message they sent you, then you're accepting people thinking they're the HR director at XYZ big company, but actually when you click through on them, it's pretty obvious that from the few lines of profile that there are, that they wouldn't hold that position if that's what their profile looked like.
And I think there's also a proliferation of these third-party tools that are selling pretty cheap, that say, oh, you can use LinkedIn to build your network and all this stuff. And so they're not looking at profiles, they're just pulling fields, they're scraping data. So I can't tell you how many people have wanted to staff my CPA firm, because I have a CPA firm client, but they want to staff that firm. It's like, did you even look at my profile? Or they come with a question that they scrape the data. For a while, I was putting a period, like a little dot in front of my first name. And when I'd get an invitation from somebody like that, it's like, all right, I know you're using some kind of tool, scraping. So yeah, there's no shortcut to really building relationships. And so that's the bottom line, is you want to engage with real people and build real relationships. It's not a numbers game.
Absolutely. And one little additional tip on that, if you want to go down the route of putting something in your name field to be able to see if someone is scraping and spamming, I recommend just putting in your middle initial. Because if I've seen people not have a capital letter for their first name, or have some strange other symbol in their name field, which can get your account shut down. All these things have the risk of either making your account be shut down or making you look unprofessional. People whose names are all in small letters, yes, it might help you identify who some of the spammers are, but it also makes you look unprofessional on the platform. So which is worse? But yeah,
we have to be examples. We consider ourselves avid daily users, and I think that we need to set a good example, and hopefully others will follow.
Yeah, absolutely. So those of you just joining, if you've got particular questions you'd like to be answered, please do use the question box and fire those through. But Judi, one I wanted to ask you about, because I said you're a certified LinkedIn Sales Navigator expert. For people who have been toying with the idea of upgrading from either free or regular premium LinkedIn to Sales Navigator, what's some of the functionality there that you find clients find really valuable and that makes a difference to what they're able to achieve on LinkedIn?
Yeah, it's a really powerful platform. It is not necessarily LinkedIn. It's another platform that they acquired and they folded in. So just be aware of that. But from a search perspective, if you really understand how to filter and refine your searches, you can use it to find ideal opportunities, whether it's companies. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll work with a client and come up with a list of ideal companies that they want to connect with that makes sense for their business objectives. And then we will use that as an account list, and we will search that against a certain like job title or role or something like that. So some kind of trigger that will find people. So I think from a search capability, it's outstanding. And you can also track different things from an engagement perspective. They have really done some good work in terms of how you can organize your searches, and then what they call leads, which are really, prospects, leads, whatever the terminology, they're people, they're profiles, and then accounts are actually companies. So I think that I would say to people, don't sign on until you actually know why you want to use it, because it's at $100 a month. It's not cheap. And I think that it does give you some of the features that the premium gives you. Premium, I think, is like 50 or $60 a month here in the US, which gives you 90-day profile views. So if you don't check who's looking at your profile, why have it? It increases some limits, but there's workarounds for that, So I would say first have a plan. And usually when I'm onboarding a client, we don't activate Navigator until the profile is optimized. And at that point, then we'll start to build the Navigator searches, based on, it could be an event, it could be, different things that we're looking for, but we find that the robust search features are pretty cool. There's another thing they have in there, which is smart links, which is a really great way. If you don't have like a like a lead gen mechanism on your website, and say you have a piece of valuable content, a PDF or something, you can then have people click it, and LinkedIn tracks it. And so you can see who's looked at it, what pages they've looked at, how long they've spent on it. So I think it's a good way to get some intel. And there's also a really good home feed that you can set up to find different bits of information. Who's changed jobs, who's in the news, who is on the move, in terms of doing things, getting funding. They've got another seed round of funding, things like that. So there's a lot of work in setting it up, and that's where I've gotten trained, is how to set that up properly. And then once it's running, but here's the caution, and I say this to everybody: just use the regular LinkedIn messaging, because if you decide you don't want to keep paying the $100 a month or whatever it is, and you're doing messaging, everything's gone. You'll lose it. And I think it's really important to have a message trail, because there's people, I just got a message from somebody 25 months ago. We were engaging, and he just said, "Hey, I'm so sorry, I was supposed to do this, and 25 months have passed." And I'm like, I would have never known that had I not seen the whole message trail. So be aware that it is a separate platform, and that when you set it up, you want to do most of your engagement on the regular LinkedIn.
Absolutely, yeah. I've had clients lose, reams and reams of past interactions from precisely that, from having downgraded from Sales Navigator. And I believe I'm right in saying, Judi, that even if you then upgrade again, the previous interactions you had from earlier periods when you were subscribed to Navigator, that they're lost for good. I don't think they come back when you turn the subscription back on.
Yeah, it reminds me of a Seinfeld episode too, with the way LinkedIn handles data. It's very easy to get data in. So you can get data in, you can create these searches, you can do all this stuff in Sales Navigator and LinkedIn, but you can't get it out. Even if you connect it to your CRM, and that's the highest enterprise accounts that are like, $1,000, $1,500 a month per seat. It's very hard to get it out. So it's just one of those things where, that's why you need a strategy. Why am I using this? What is the expected outcome? How will I measure that? and how long will I do this? And in my own personal use, I've bought the year membership because it was a little bit cheaper because I
Yeah,
use it in business, but again, if it doesn't make sense for you, don't do it.
yeah, spot
Yeah.
on. Good. Various questions come in, and some that have come in on the comments earlier as well. One that I did get asked about in the comments is, have you had any play around with any artificial intelligence tools that you found helpful in terms of maintaining your LinkedIn presence? Anything you've encountered there?
You
We
know,
have, so I can talk about that if you haven't. But
yeah, no, I'm not sure if they would be AI tools, but I started to get acquainted with Lead Delta, and
okay.
it's a really interesting. I don't think it's AI. I look at it as a task management tool because it really helps organize your inbox. Because that has been my greatest pain with LinkedIn is, the typical person's what's going to get 10 messages a day, maybe, I don't know. What happens if you get 50? How do you organize this? How do you keep track of people? So Lead Delta is a really cool platform. I don't believe it violates any terms of service, but don't hold me to it because again, LinkedIn is weird that way. But I find it's great for inbox management. You can tag it has like a mirror of your inbox. You can tag different messages. You can prioritize them. You can, set it up for different kinds of queues. So like Tony, I want to follow up with you a month from now. I can set that up. So I think that's one that's really good. Another tool I'm using is called Authored In, which is
Okay.
more of a way of formatting your text. And now you can save drafts, which there's no other tool on, even the LinkedIn draft thing isn't functional because it's only your last draft. But I like that. So again, I don't think it's AI, but it is, web-based. And it gives you a really nice preview of how your post will look. And it does have some nice formatting features. Other tools, I'd be really wary. There's a list, and I posted something recently. There's a lot of tools that are just against what LinkedIn wants you to do. Like viewing profiles, sending invitations. That's all no. I would never use a tool for that because that will get you shut down. I have gotten, and we know in our chat groups, several people, it's like, oh, I got suspended. How do I get out of LinkedIn jail? Don't use those tools. And LinkedIn does know on your browser. They can tell. I mean, they're a very sophisticated company. I do use Shield. Shield AI is for content metrics. And again, this is really, the tools I'm using is to augment what LinkedIn is not providing me. So I need to get deeper insights into how content is being engaged and consumed, and Shield does that. So that's another one. And again, I'm not promoting any of these. Use it as your own risk. I use it on my account. I also download my database weekly, so in case I lost my account, I'm not going to lose my network. Yeah, I would say that be cautious and ask yourself, why am I using this? Am I using it to speed up my network growth? Not a good reason. Am I using it because, just messaging people is too much of a pain in the butt? Not a good reason. So again, have a really good purpose as to why you want to use a tool, and then use it at your own risk.
I think the original question there was an interest in sort of content production through AI as well. So I can talk about that. We use a tool at Social Hire called Jasper, which, at its most extreme can write a blog post for you. I mean, it's quite amazing to watch. When we first trialed this, we've got colleagues in Eastern Europe, colleagues in South Africa, and we just typed into Jasper, write a blog post about which is better as a holiday destination, South Africa or Eastern Europe. Press go, and literally you watch this thing write, a pretty impressive, blog post for you. It's quite remarkable. I think. But I'm giving that as background to the tool. Where we find it really useful is not, writing the whole content for us, but in actually getting ideas. So, these tools have various modules in them and you can say, for example, what would be a good blog outline if I wanted to write a blog about, I don't know, 10 great ways to do well in a job interview.
Yeah.
And the tool will then actually generate for you 10 ideas of ways that you could do well in a job interview. And so if you're, from a social media point of view, where you're trying to brainstorm what would be some great things to write about, if I put into that tool, what are some things you should improve with your LinkedIn profile, literally, because it's consumed, I think it's 10% of the internet, it can give me a whole load of ideas from all around the web that it's found. So we find it really useful as a brainstorming tool like that. And then you've probably seen in the news loads, all the image art generating artificial intelligence at the moment. Some of these have won, art competitions, and that's caused a bit of consternation. But again, we find that really, if you've produced a blog or a LinkedIn newsletter or something, and you've got a particular image in mind that you want to have, then using an AI tool to create that can be done in seconds. The cyborg image that I put up on LinkedIn today, that came from from Jasper. I just typed in what I wanted, and out it produced that for me. And we'll quite often have clients say to us, I'd really love an image with this that is this or that. And you're thinking, God, if I go to Canva or whatever and try and look for that image,
Yeah.
does it even exist? And how many hours is it going to take to find that? Whereas plug in what you want to a tool like this, and it's almost instantaneous. So
Vast database. Yeah, it is. I mean, as long as what I say on LinkedIn is try to behave like you would in real life.
yes.
So when it comes to basic interaction and content you post, I'm finding, gosh, past ever since the creator program was launched, there's a lot more crap in the feed, and it's the stuff that is just like clogging it up, and less insights and less business information. And so, the whole thing about AI, I mean, I'll do a Google search, I'll put in a subject, and then if you know how to look at a search results page, at the bottom, it says people also searching for, and it gives you, things that real people are searching for. And so you can, these are other topics, so I like to see what's already out there when I'm doing research for articles or ideas. That's one way to do it. But I think the tools you're talking about are pretty cool. I'd be interested in playing with it. I just don't want to pay for it. So,
yeah.
And I do, by the way, I do have a graphic designer that is amazing, and he redid my brand, and he does some of my client work. And hands down, every time, I try to create something, I'm like, oh, I'm not an artist. Then I give it to him, and he comes up with something. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a professional. So, I do, as much as I want to, take shortcuts in certain things, there's still, some value in human engagement that way. So that's just me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to check out Jasper, because I've been looking for some things, and I think that's going to be a real time saver.
Glad to have helped. I'm sure
Yes.
you'll love it. Another question that's come through is around views on posts and what might have changed with the algorithm. So this particular person saying, they had a post quite recently that got tens of thousands of views, but then, since then I only seem to be getting 1,000. Why this massive difference between my best performing post and what I'm seeing on the rest? Is there anything you're aware of having changed, or trends, patterns that you're seeing?
Well, the whole thing with the algorithm is, as soon as we think we try to figure out what's going to work, they change the rules. And here's what I say to people is, it's not so much getting all of these eyeballs, because sometimes I'll look at those views and I'll, whatever LinkedIn tells us, I put up a post for one of my clients that does physical security, and it was a really good post, and it got some decent views, but the majority were firefighters. And I'm like, I don't understand. I mean, that's not even their target, So it is interesting to look at. Yes, a lot of people are putting eyeballs on this, but are they the right people? That goes back to your network. Typically what I find in a post, and I don't have scientific proof, it's just anecdotal, but it's usually about 10% of your followers your network, your connections, people that see what you do, will be the first to see a post. And then depending upon who else engages with it, then it starts to spread. And I have done some tests where I've posted the same thing, maybe as a image and then as a doc, and I post it maybe 10 minutes apart. The same people aren't going to see it. So then I like to see, okay, which one is getting more engagement and why. But I'm more concerned about who is engaging with it. Are people commenting? So the commenting and the even more so than reactions matters most than views. So I'd rather have a post that has lesser views but really high engagement, where people are posting great insights and there's responses and they're going back and forth and it's really becoming, a conversation topic. That to me is a successful post. Something that gets a lot of, these virtue signal posts. It's just, it's like those weird videos on Facebook, people, frying money to peel off tabs. Don't even get me started. Yeah, I'm a cynic that way, but again, I really go back to true engagement. I really want LinkedIn to be like it would be in real life. It's just a tool for us. It doesn't substitute real life. It shouldn't. It should augment it.
I had an interesting exchange with a recruitment business owner this last week who's got his team all tracking their LinkedIn stats, probably Shield or something similar. And he said he's noticed over the last few weeks that LinkedIn have been playing around with the engagement window. So for quite a number of years, we had the golden hour after you first posted. How much engagement did you get within the first hour? If you got loads, the post would carry on doing well. If you didn't, it would kind of die out. And then a year and a half ago, that was phased out and replaced by how much engagement do you get during the course of the first day. And that then determines if it stays live for a week or two longer. And I think the rationale behind that was to try and stamp out pod behavior, which for those of you who don't know is where you get a group of people all agree to help each other's posts do well by all engaging with them. It's against LinkedIn's terms of service, but it has happened a lot over the years. But yeah, this particular recruitment business owner was saying from their stats, they are seeing quite a yo-yo in terms of whether LinkedIn is going back to the 1 hour window or keeping with the full day. So it may just be that some of the variability you're seeing in post performance is just down to that.
I think what we all need to do is do a cleansing on our newsfeed. And that is, if you see things you don't care for, use the 3 dots and say, I don't want to see this, or unfollow, because whenever you connect with somebody, you automatically follow them, which implies that you might see their feed. But I think that if you want to streamline what you see in your news feed, you can use the notification buttons on certain profiles. You can follow or unfollow. If you're seeing some sort of advertising stuff that you don't want to see, go into your settings. So there is a way to streamline that feed. And what I say to people is, what is the first thing you do on LinkedIn? Do you look at your news feed? It's kind of a rabbit hole. Do you look at notifications? I want to see what the notifications are. And what I'm noticing lately is there's some really old posts that are coming back into the feed. I just had a notification. Somebody just posted a comment on something I posted 2 years ago. I was like, whoa, so
find that?
Yeah, posts don't die. I mean, they're there. If somebody finds them based on, however you have indexed it, maybe through a hashtag or something, it was just fascinating. When I saw it, I was like, wow, that was 2 years ago. So, yeah.
I've had a couple of questions in about, how you go about approaching clients or generating leads on LinkedIn. Perhaps could we start with, is it possible to reliably generate client leads and inquiries through LinkedIn? Is that something that you see companies achieve?
All the time.
Move on and talk about how that's done.
All the time, as long as you don't approach LinkedIn as a cold calling machine. Because, it comes down to nobody wants to be sold to. If you immediately connect with me and then start pitching me your stuff, it's not relevant to me. I don't really care about that. I don't need car insurance. I mean, whatever it is that you're selling. I think that you first have to establish a rapport, and you have to find the right people. So one of the things I found really valuable is the job change. The job, hands down, I have had successes with my clients when we've looked at, and there's a link now that you can use. It's linkedin.com/celebrations/job_changes. Okay, so I don't know if I can put it in a chat or something, but if you bookmark that, every week, it's a weekly rotation, so it's only visible for a week. Remember, you used to see it in your notifications, doesn't show up anymore. So if you look at that, here's what I do with job changes. I look at the person's role. Sometimes it's a promotion, sometimes it's a new job. And I look at the role that they left. And then what I do is make a public acknowledgement in a personal way, not like the congrats, the AI version, but send them a personalized direct message. And this is what I'm doing, like through my clients, is sending them something about their role. And maybe it's, they've come up the ranks, or it's a really great opportunity, or, they've moved to a new city, but then leave it open for an opportunity to catch up. And hands down, that has been the best way to get people in conversations. And it's not a bait and switch. It's just, hey, you're doing really cool stuff. Would love to hear more about it. And so that to me has been the best way. Now, also look at the position that they left. Okay, so when they've left a place, they're generally going to replace that role. So if you're a job seeker, that's another way to see, opportunities there. And if you're in business development, you're selling service or products, whatever, it's another opportunity. Usually when people come into new roles, they have a new, they want to make their mark. Maybe they have access to budget, things like that. So it's an opportunity on both ends, but you can't speed it up. The lead gen part of LinkedIn is, it's not spaghetti on the wall. I'm just going to put all this stuff out, send 100 messages, the same thing, and see what sticks. Because it generally doesn't work. I found people are just, we've called it slap pitching, or pitch slapping or something like that, where you connect. And I'm victim of it every once in a while. Somebody will reach out to me, and then boom, they go into a pitch, and I'm like, oh man, they got me. And I generally will call them out on it, and we'll then have a conversation about, better behavior on LinkedIn. But, it's really, it's like, would you do this in real life? I go to an event, I meet you, Tony, and I'm immediately talking all about what I do. And you're like, your eyes are glassing over, and you're like, whoa, too much. You're going to propose on the first conversation? You want to know my financials? Seriously? I mean, that's what it's like, right? So LinkedIn is a great way to find people. It's a robust database with really, really great insights, so you can find who you want to talk with, look at what they're doing, engage with their content, show them that you're interested in what they're sharing. Hopefully they are sharing something. And then at that point, work towards getting into a conversation, get the conversation offline, whether it's a Zoom or a meeting or whatever. And that's how leads happen. That's how business deals close.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
I've got a couple of points to add there, Judy. Someone's asked, could you put the link you just mentioned in the chat area? So if you're
do that,
absolutely. And then just share that with everyone, that would be great. I must admit, I didn't know that you could see that in the free version of LinkedIn. I thought it was only something you could see through.
Yeah, there's nothing you could do. In the search bar, type out the word starting new position. Because when you're celebrating a kudo, and the word there is starting a new position, put that in the search, and you'll see all the people starting new position. And then you can filter it by your first degree connections, and you can say, was it past 24 hours, past week, past month?
Yeah.
And so those are signals. What I call those are triggers or signals that you can use to activate conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make one other observation around getting client leads and sales, which is try to think about what will start conversations with your ideal prospects and get you on a call with them, or get you meeting in person, or whatever it might be, but that's not directly going for a sale. And if I give you some examples there, you see lots of consulting firms, recruitment businesses and the like doing podcasts, doing video interviews, producing quarterly reports on the state of the market. And a lot of people think they're doing that so that they've got great content to share on social media. And maybe some of them are doing it for that reason. But the bigger reason for doing it is a fantastic door opener to approach people you would like to have a conversation with. You know, this last week, I have had 3 conversations with recruitment business owners who want to work with us. I'd initially approached them just to see if they were interested in joining the video interview series that we're doing. But lo and behold, you get on a call with them and the conversation quickly turns in, you know, the direction of, oh, you know, tell me more about what your business does. I'd be intrigued to hear how you help companies like mine. But had I approached those people and just said, you know, how about we jump on a call and I can, you know, tell you what you're doing wrong on social media and how we could improve it, you know, I wouldn't be anywhere if that was the kind of approach I'd adopted.
You know what the difference is, Tony? Here's the big difference. When you make it about them, then they're interested. If it's about you and I want to hop on a call, it's like, sure, my billable rate is $7.50 an hour. Happy to chat, you know, cool. They go away. But if you make it like, hey, I want to hear your point of view on, you know, XYZ. Yeah, because that's about me and I'm interested in sharing that. And then it works twofold. If you actually, you know, use the information and publish it or produce it or whatever, then
Yeah.
they get visibility. So yeah, no, I think having a podcast or interviewing, you know, for research that you're actually really going to publish is a great way to engage people. I do it with polls. I've done it where I will put out a poll, but then I will close the loop and actually publish a piece of content about the poll. And then sometimes even ask people, you know, you voted this way, can I quote you on that? You know, tell me a little bit more about how, you know, what motivated you for that response. So,
Yes.
you know, whatever you can do, the worst thing to do is connect with somebody and then send them this really long message with a bunch of nonsense with a link to hop on a call, you know, their Calendly link or whatever. Never do that. What I believe in is asking permission. So, you know,
Yeah.
Tony, we just connected. You know, I've been listening to your show, and here's how a typical interaction would happen. You know, I listen to your show, so I reach out and say, hey, Tony, I love your show. I love that interview with Petra. It made me laugh, you know. So would be great to connect. So then we connect, and then I start engaging with your content. I see some more shows, I comment on them. I'm showing you some love. And it's genuine because I want to get to know you. Okay, I would hope to be a guest on your show. Maybe that's my ulterior motive, right? So then I might say, hey, you know, we've been connected a while, you know, would love to, you know, see if you want to chat. Are you open to it? I'm asking permission. So either you're going to ignore me or you're going to say, sure, you know, and then I'll ask you, would you like, you know, a calendar link or are you available here? So again, it's slow,
Yeah.
but I'm building trust and credibility, which if you want to do business with charlatans, fine. You know, they're the ones that are going to connect and pitch you with that, you know, Calendly to hop on a call and then pitch you. But if you want to build credibility and trust over time, you have to do it slowly, you know, and you have to show an interest. So when it's about me, you know, like when you're showing interest about me, then that builds credibility. You know, when it's all about you and whatever you want to sell me, and then you realize, oh, you're not a CPA firm after all, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, that's great. And for those of you asking for the link, I'll make sure when we send out the email with the recording of this tomorrow that we include the link in that, so you'll all have the link to be able to access the job change info. Judi, another topic I wanted to cover is around the use of the About section on your LinkedIn profile. I'm still amazed how many people don't even have that. But what are some recommendations you might have for how that's best used?
Yeah, the About section, and this has been the biggest shocker, and I actually talk about this, is it's about the reader that's reading it. So, you know, you bragging about yourself or being regurgitating your CV or resume, boring, boring, boring. Okay, blah. But you providing some insights, and Tony, you might have, for instance, you know, and I just making this up, but you might say, here are, you know, 4 ways to produce audio shows to start conversations. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Then you close it in with, we've produced 427,000 shows. You know, would be happy to help you do your show. Let's have a conversation. So you have a call to action. So make it about the person that is reading it. because then you've got their interest. And also the first 2 or 3 lines is really the hook. It's like an email subject line. What's going to get you to click on it? What's going to get you to click more? You know, can you give me some tidbit, something golden in that about section? That is also, don't stuff it with keywords, but use terminology that underscores what it is that you're all about. You can pull, you know, recommendations from people and put them in pull quotes. I don't think you can put URLs in there still. But I think another way to do an about section, I worked with somebody that was changing careers, and he had had a terrible accident, and so he was out of work for about 4 years, and he was really worried that, you know, recruiters would look upon that as a weakness. So there's a book, it's called Storyteller's Secret, and it's fabulous, and it's based on the methodology of TED Talks. And so there was one in there about the Titanic, you know, the event that happened, you know, what led up to it, how it happened, and what the after story is. And so we use that as a way that, you know, he was riding high on the top of his career. Then this happened, his whole world is upside down, and now he's stronger and better than ever. And so that's another way, is to use it to tell a story, you know, that you engage the reader. Tell me a story about you, something crazy that happened. Why is my name Judy? I have a story about that, you know, I mean, crazy things, you know. So, and you can also use your cover story as a way to augment your about section. You know, the cover story thing, your profile photo, because that's the audio tool. So yeah, does that answer the questions, guys out there, guys and gals, about the about section? Don't just leave it blank, and don't make it your CV.
Spot on. I had another question coming in after we were talking about you know, generating client interest and leads. Can LinkedIn work for B2C, so to consumer sales, or is it only relevant for B2B?
No, it can, because consumers are, most of them have jobs or, you know, professionals to some degree. So that goes back to knowing who your audience is. So if I'm selling, you know, like home care services to people that are now taking care of their elders, their parents, I might look for people that have been in their career for maybe, you know, a bit of time, more than 10 years, and maybe in senior positions, that are executives that now might be open to having that conversation. You know, so think about who your target is and what role they may have in the business world, and then you can find them that way. But don't sell them. You know, again, I would provide content with, you know, how to be in the sandwich generation. You know, I've got a teenager and I've got an elderly parent, and here I am in the middle of the sandwich. How do I deal with it? You know, provide resources for people, and then you become, again, the go-to when their problem becomes so painful that they need a solution. You're the one that's been showing up all the time. So who are they going to think of naturally? You, right?
Yes, absolutely. Judi, I'm very conscious of time because I know you have a meeting at the top of the hour. I guess one last question would be, if people have got a new business they want to launch, or a new product they're launching, new service coming out, new website that they've poured love into creating, any particular tips you would give people about how to make a splash about those kinds of things on LinkedIn? And indeed, can you? Is that realistic for, you know, just a regular business person that hasn't invested the time on LinkedIn in advance?
Yeah, and I think you wrote about this recently, or somebody I saw this posted. You know, set up a company page for whatever that business is. I mean, when I published my book, I made a company page for my book so I could house the content there. So because that's a way to validate it, it's going to be found on social, and then maybe even share the process. Here's what I learned starting a business. Here's what I would do different. Here's how I came up with this idea. You know, get people to relate to you, and then also leverage your network. One of my colleagues has a book coming out. I can't say it because he says don't say anything till Thursday, but he's reached out to me before the book was published to give him a quote, and you know, he gave me some information and I wrote a quote, and now he's leveraging the network to do a really successful launch on Thursday. And so again, use the network that you've built. You know, people want to help one another. I do believe that genuinely. People do want to help, you know, and by all means, you know, just do it with a splash, but set up a company page.
And a great bit of advice in there was, you know, talking about the process, because let's say you're rebranding or you're launching a new website. Well, that's really exciting for you, but it's not necessarily really exciting for the audience that you want to be excited about it. Whereas everything that's gone on in the background to make that happen, you know, the challenges you've had choosing a web designer, the, you know, having to choose between these 4 different logos, you know, all these kinds of things are much more talking points and things that people will actually be interested in than just the fact that you are rebranding or relaunching. So find ways to, you know, to talk about it like that, I think is really key. And the other thing I've seen even the smallest businesses do really well is build a tribe in advance of the launch. So, you know, if you went to a business school or you went to a university or you've got a WhatsApp group of all your old school friends or whatever, you know, get them on board in advance, tell them that you're going to be doing this big launch on such and such a day, and you'd really love their support in helping to make a splash about that. And actually, if you do get a whole load of people behind you, you know, for a one-off or maybe a couple of announcements like that, you know, I've seen people get 50,000 to 100,000 views on LinkedIn from that kind of post, even if they themselves didn't have a huge network, because they've just, you know, recognized that weakness, but put in the effort to build that tribe of supporters in advance, and that then overcomes, you know, the lack of their own presence.
You know, I think word of mouth is totally underrated in terms of the value. I mean, just think, you want to go out to eat, ask people, what do you like for this? What do you like for that? You know, where do I go? I got to get my car fixed. Where do I go for this? You know, so I think word of mouth and really leveraging, I call it pay it forward. You know, the people that, hey, we have what Brenda Miller, I love Brenda Miller, and she coined the phrase, I believe she did, co-opetition. You know, we're all doing same thing, you know, and at the end of the day, it's LinkedIn, right? But we all serve different people. And so if we can cooperate together, you know, we all rise. And so that's how you pay it forward. You know, with people, you know, you come out with a book, I will promote it to the hilt, you know, and, you know, when there's something else going on, it's not, you know, nobody owes anybody anything, but I'm really happy to see other people succeed, you know, because I think it helps us all. You know, it really does. So, you know, ask away. So, the worst thing you can say is no, right? I mean, that's what my mama taught me. She says, you know, you don't ask, you don't know, right?
Terrific.
So, Tony, thank you so much for this opportunity. Across the pond, how many hours? What is it? Nighttime for you? Is it not?
Not just yet. No, late afternoon. So,
So
well,
nice.
Judi, it's me thanking you for making the time to be on the call today and for sharing all your insights with everyone so openly. Hugely appreciated. If you're not connected with or following Judi already, definitely recommend looking her up and doing that today on LinkedIn. And as I say, we'll have the recording out to everyone over the course of the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I'll look at the comments on this, but if we missed a question, feel free to post it. And yes, I will share that link there. So yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, terrific. Have a great rest of the week. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.